dropped all his holdings. He told a Berkshire Hathaway live stream he sold all his stakes in American carriers, saying the virus fallout has probably changed the industry forever. Well, let's have focus on that airline industry and its travails now. For more on that, let's bring in Bloomberg reporter Siddharth Philip. Thanks very much for being with us, Siddharth. Well, first of all, that Lufthansa deal, is that pretty much sure to go ahead now?
It's still a work in progress, and essentially it's looking more and more likely that the German government will contribute as much as 10 billion euros to Lufthansa, and in return the government is likely to receive, they've asked for a blocking majority of voting rights.
In terms of Norwegian Air as well, Siddharth, so what we've got here is bondholders backing a debt-to-equity restructuring plan. Just take that, just explain that to us and tell us whether it does actually take the airline closer to securing state loan guarantees.
Yes, so over the weekend was pretty hectic for Norwegian because on Friday they didn't get the requisite support from the bondholders, and so they went back to the bondholders over the weekend, and now the bondholders have agreed to convert some of their debt into equity along with airline lessors, who are also a significant chunk of Norwegian creditors.
So, Siddharth, I mean, we've looked there, obviously, at two European airlines that are in a bad way. But what about the US picture? Because this news from Berkshire Hathaway, I mean, it's not exactly a vote of confidence, is it, in US airlines?
Sure. The U.S. carriers have got a bailout from the government so far, and essentially Berkshire Hathaway is seeing, Warren Buffett seeing a change in the way we travel, as you pointed out at the beginning of the show. So it does look a pretty difficult route, especially when the furlough funding runs out.
So far, Siddharth, I think governments have devoted something like $85 billion to propping up airlines. How much is this actually going to help? Is there a sense that it's only going to prolong the pain?
So it's a bit unclear right now. It all depends on when flying resumes again, and when, more importantly, people feel more comfortable flying. So it's all a bit, it depends on when and where people start flying again. And that will also mean what the social distancing measures are and what sort of social distancing measures they implement on airlines and airports and all the other places.
Yeah, because we had this morning that warning from the head of Heathrow here in the UK saying that that's going to make a real problem for airline passengers. But one question that interests me, Siddharth, all this is obviously very much tied to Boeing and Airbus in terms of the way providing planes that can be flown. I mean, this whole industry seems to be in a real bind, doesn't it?
It does, and essentially it came so fast and it had such a prolonged effect because you've seen a worldwide grounding of virtually all the fleet. So essentially it all depends on really what's happening around the world rather than sort of being isolated in one region or another.
Great to have you with us. Thank you so much. Bloomberg reporter Siddharth Philip joining us with an update on all the airlines news over the weekend. And for an update on all the latest in global news, here's Bloomberg's Leanne Gerrans. Hi, Leanne.
Good morning, Naira, and thank you. The daily death toll from the coronavirus is falling across the UK, France, Italy and Spain. That's as leaders across Europe wrestle with how to ease lockdown restrictions. Britain is not set to unwind its curbs just yet. That's as the government prepares guidance for the next steps, including if employees need to wear face masks and how public transport should be used. Elsewhere, France's Finance Minister Bruno Le Maire says it's important the nation goes back to work on the 11th of May. Staying in Europe, German Chancellor Angela Merkel and French President Emmanuel Macron are spearheading a European initiative to speed up the development of a vaccine against coronavirus. Let's get more from Bloomberg's Birgit Jenen.
Ahead of Monday's donor conference of the European Union and the World Health Organization, Merkel has pledged that vaccination and medication should be available for all people wherever they are from. She said Germany is ready to make a distinct financial contribution to the $8 billion project, as only multilateral action will allow the world to overcome the crisis. In Berlin, Birgit Jenen, Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
Crossing over to New Zealand, which has hit a major milestone after recording no new cases of coronavirus today. This is raising hopes it can further relax its lockdown restrictions next week. The Ministry of Health reported 0 new cases for the first time since the lockdown began on the 25th of March. Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern is set to decide on the 11th of May whether to ease the measures. And Australia's population growth will likely halve next year as the coronavirus spurs a collapse in migration, according to the government. Bloomberg's Ed Johnson has more.
Travel bans and border closures could see migration fall by as much as 85%. That will hurt the economy, making it even more important to boost productivity. The economy is potentially headed for its first recession in almost 30 years, as lockdown measures close off broad sections of society. But the restrictions do appear to be working, with the rate of new infections slowing to a trickle. In Sydney, Ed Johnson, Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Leanne Gerrans. This is Bloomberg. Roger.
Leanne, thanks so much. Let's get to the latest European sport now with Joe Rawson, who tells us about the difficulties of fans getting in to see top-flight football.
Premier League clubs are preparing for the possibility of playing the whole of next season behind closed doors. The Top Flight is continuing to work on proposals to complete the current campaign at a number of neutral venues, but they have also started considering the impact of playing into next year without fans as well. Meanwhile, Norwich City boss Daniel Farke hopes his side get the chance to pull off the Great Escape. The Premier League Sporting Club was 6 points adrift of safety when all football in England was postponed because of the coronavirus pandemic. Football clubs in Italy are set to return to training grounds this week after getting the go-ahead from the government, while teams in Spain will be allowed to open training centres again next week. And England's tour of Sri Lanka that was postponed in March has been rescheduled for January 2021. The ECB held discussions with Cricket West Indies on Friday as the two boards looked for dates to hold the 3-test series.
Coming up on Bloomberg Daybreak Europe, Andrew McCaffrey, Global Chief Investment Officer at Fidelity International in London, will join us on the show, Roger. And as we have a down day in Europe, we'll figure out where risk assets go next. Meanwhile, Percy's been up to some mischief over the weekend.
Yes, you're the latest from my cat for new listeners. He jumped into the bath and ate a spider, much to my daughter and my sort of horror, but sort of relief as well. That's Percy. This is Bloomberg.
When you went car shopping, you meant business. You aced vehicle history searches and test drives. You out-salesman to the salesman. Now you've got your wheels. If you manage that, you can get your retirement plan on track. Visiting aceyourretirement.org can help. With 401k tips and smart saving strategies, you'll have the info you need to get more for your future. Go to aceyourretirement.org, because when it comes to speeding past financial challenges, you're an ace. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
The Boston Symphony Orchestra presents BSO at Home. While you stay inside, enjoy a curated collection of archived concerts and behind-the-scenes stories from BSO musicians. BSO Homeschool provides lessons for music lovers of all ages. New performances and messages from musicians are added regularly. Enjoy these selections and much more at bso.org/at-home.
Business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants, as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers, prepare, file, and disseminate regulatory and disclosure documents, such as registration statements, M&A documents, and mutual fund prospectuses and reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
What's the true value? A half-price dream holiday, wouldn't want to miss that. A takeaway for free, wouldn't want to miss that. And 30 gigs data for just £10 a month on Smarty Mobile. You definitely don't want to miss that. Our Smarty SIM comes packed with 30 gigs of data and unlimited calls and texts for just £10 a month on a 1-month plan. That's why Smarty won Best Value SIM-only network in the Uswitch Mobile Awards 2020. Don't miss out. Search Smarty Mobile. Smarty. Simple, honest mobile. Smarty.co.uk.
Picture in your mind a stylish Audi with striking LED headlights, sporty alloy wheels, and some of our most advanced features, including a 10-inch digital cockpit and smart assistant systems like lane departure warning. Picture what that Audi looks like. Now think smaller. The Audi A1. It's not a small car, it's a small Audi. Visit audi.co.uk. Audi. Vorsprung durch Technik.
When next in Asda, why not try our new mobile Scan and Go app? Simply download the app, scan your shop with your mobile, and pack as you go. Then head to the self-checkout to pay. Quick, easy, and contact-free, so you have more time to get your cook on. Asda. Mobile data charges may apply. Suitable for iOS 9 and Android 5 or above. Selected stores subject to availability.
Where will 2020 take you? Somewhere where people care. About each other. About our planet. About creating a better world for everyone. And becoming the best versions of yourselves. Join a community of like-minded individuals at the University of Winchester. Make sure to accept your offer by the UCAS deadline and visit our website to find out more. See the bigger picture. Be the difference. Go to winchester.ac.uk.
We need to tackle coronavirus together. You can help by not travelling this May bank holiday unless it is absolutely essential. With limited staff, TfL is only supporting those people making essential journeys. No one else should be travelling. If you must travel, try to avoid the busy times, particularly the early morning. We have already seen fewer people using our services. London, together we can all do our bit. This May bank holiday, stay at home, do not travel, save lives.
Imagine winning 10 grand. Yes! With Set for Life, you can win 10 grand every month for 30 years.
Get in! Amazing! Woo! Yes! Sweet! Unbelievable!
Set for Life from the National Lottery. Your numbers make amazing happen. Play Monday online or on the app. Prize may be capped. Rules, procedures and game-specific rules apply. Players must be 16 or over.
Picture this. Small businesses on eBay are working to
get things moving.
Sending spices to novice cooks.
Hairbands to kids.
Desks for home offices.
Delivering the goods.
Shipping footballs.
Fruit trees.
And dishwashers.
Thousands of small businesses on eBay are helping to keep the nation going. They are individually brilliant, stronger as one. Buy, sell, eBay.
Another day inside? I've turned my place into a gymnasium. I'm using the stairs for lunging and the washing machine as a power plate. But if you'd rather shed pounds off your outgoings, take a few minutes to check your bank account for any unwanted direct debits. It's just another small step towards money calm. Money Supermarket.
To help make the most of your time at home, TuneIn is sharing our top activities for social distancing. Tip 3, have a game night. In fact, why not make it a game day? Whether you're quarantined with kids or roommates, nothing passes the time like a game of cards, Pictionary, charades, dominoes, or Never Have I Ever. If you've got the hardware, break out the video game console and enjoy hours of guilt-free gaming. For more indoor inspiration, search Listen From Home on TuneIn.
News 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on QuickTake by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Good morning from London. I'm Sandra Kilhoff with this Bloomberg Business Flash. Now, it's a risk-off day in the markets with the Stock 600 down 2% and the DAX falling 2.8%. We are seeing the CAC 40 down 3.3% in Paris. Here in London, the FTSE is fairly flat at the moment. US futures pointing to a lower open. It comes after a similar day in Asian stock markets. Of course, Japan and China closed for a holiday. The Hang Seng still trading, though, down 4% at the moment. Now, this is translated translating into quite a big haven bid for the dollar at the moment, up 0.4% this morning. Yen also gaining up 0.1% at 106.8. Sterling, on the other hand, down to 124. The euro at 109, both down about 0.5%. Of course, that strength in the greenback pushing the other G10 peers lower. Similarly so for the Aussie and Kiwi dollars, both down about 0.4% at the moment. In the bond markets, we are seeing 10-year Treasury yields holding at 61 basis points. 10-year bund yields moving higher, up 3 basis points to negative 56. 10-year gilt yields holding at 24 basis points this morning. In the commodity markets, oil is moving lower. WTI down 6% at $18 a barrel. Brent at $25 a barrel. Gold ticking higher, up 0.3% at $1,705 a troy ounce. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Now here's Anne Garens with more on what's going on around the world.
Sandra, thank you so much. In Italy, Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte is facing a growing revolt by business and political rivals. Starting today, the nationwide lockdown is being eased. Pressure to speed up the reopening is likely to increase. New deaths and infections blamed on the virus have fallen to the lowest level in almost 2 months. North and South Korea have exchanged fire in the demilitarized zone for the first time in years. Seoul says the North fired several times at a guard post, followed by retaliation and a verbal warning. The escalation comes a day after the North Korean leader's first public appearance in 20 days. His absence prompted global speculation about his health, and Ireland is moving closer to forming a new government. The Green Party has agreed to enter formal talks with the country's two traditional major parties, Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil. The two rivals agreed to try to form a government. That was last month, but they need a third coalition member for a parliamentary majority. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in 120 countries. I'm Leanne Gerrans. This is Bloomberg Naira.
Leanne, thank you so much. Leanne, we got an update from Roger on Percy the cat earlier, apparently eating a crunchy spider. I'm not convinced it was a spider. Roger can update on that. But how are the dogs doing, Leanne? We haven't heard them try to participate in the show today.
No, we haven't, because I'm actually back in the office in London, our bank office. So I'm back here, Queen Victoria Street. But that's absolutely fine, because I was just going to give you an update. The dogs don't like spiders, but they like squirrels. So I spend most of my time sprinting around the park trying to save all the wildlife.
There we are, you see. If you've got squirrel problems, you need Leanne. If you've got spider problems, you need me. It's a perfect business opportunity, I think.
Can't wait for that post-lockdown business opportunity. Leanne Gerrans, thank you so much, with the world news. And now let's get back to the markets. And joining us down the line, Andrew McCaffrey, Global Chief Investment Officer at Fidelity International in London. Andrew, welcome to the show. Great to have you with us on the show amid that wildlife discussion. We'll focus on the markets with you. And May certainly seems to have started off with that sell in May mantra. The mindset in April, a lot of people were telling me, were that risk assets at least were looking through all the bad news. They were pricing it in, looking straight through to the recovery and the stimulus that would be in place, both fiscal and monetary, post-coronavirus. Could we get any kind of a shift in that market mindset in May, in your opinion?
Well, good morning, Nara. Yes, I think that we could. I think what we've really seen is a combination of the sort of healing process after the panic that we saw into that mid to late part of March. And the healing process is the intervention from central banks, the expectations of support for the economy came through. And that really leading to a desire to think that this would be a relatively contained period potentially, and that more of the V-shaped recovery could take place. Just a general process of looking at that slightly more constructively with that tailwind of the intervention. I think as we came into the end of the month, that what you've seen is that that process has played out very well. But now, in some ways, as we go into the unrolling of or the unravelling of some of the lockdown position around the world, that what will that mean in terms of the risks of whether it be not just second waves, but also how much that we've seen real impact into the economy, how much the phased process of coming back in terms of activity will be, and therefore that what is the real cost, and are we discounting now something that is, I would say, a bit more balanced for markets, and that the information that we now see that could switch the mindset as we go through these next few days and weeks, as more of that information on the real economy, the phased approach starts to feed through.
Andrew, I mean, one of the interesting things in this, one of the effects which we've noticed and indeed talked about this morning, of course, is that renewed tensions between Washington and Beijing. The T word, tariffs, coming back in. Donald Trump talking about the ultimate punishment for China with its behaviour over the virus. Is that going to have a long-lasting effect, do you think?
So sadly, I think that it will, in the fact that one of the challenges around all of this is the degree to which it is in creating a degree of sort of individual country focus, of most probably, sadly, a degree of trying to apportion blame because of domestic politics, and so I don't think it's going to go away. The challenge is again how much that influences the market thinking. It's again maybe at the moment that we're just seeing it gets elevated exposure because again we have these other conditions where I think the underlying market has got back to a more balanced position post the panic, and that we'd start to look forward as to what are the risks around how do we get back to more vibrant activity, how do we fill in the income loss that's occurred. And the challenge is that seeing this type of conflict and blame being apportioned potentially just undermines some of the confidence of that process. So I think it is with us for a while, but it also has a direct market impact in that all of a sudden we're going to start to think about, does this harm the ability for economies to start to get back to working, but also the synchronized nature, because it feels very desynchronized at the moment, and what we really need going forward is a level of global cooperation, synchronized activity and an improvement, and that looks very challenging in the weeks and months ahead.
How are you allocating to risk assets in this environment now then, Andrew, and in what time frame?
So I think that when we look at it from a little bit more tactically, then we've seen opportunities appear within parts of the bond markets, as we've seen definitely from those who will be fitting into the fallen angel category. The issuance has come with significant levels of discount, and so those higher spreads have been attractive to try and participate in. And so we've seen reasonable bounces in many of these markets since the first increase in issuance 2 or 3 weeks ago. So that's one of the areas to focus on. The degree as well, looking around the world to Asia, where we think that it's not just a case of containment, but the ability to generate growth, to be in a slightly better condition, to have, in some ways, the infrastructure around medical healthcare and for society to be better and to allow activity to pick up on a steady but nonetheless improving basis. And so that draws us towards part of the high yield markets out there, which discounted a significant amount of risk. To a degree looking to China again as well, mainly at the bond market, but I think that when we look around, where can we find the potential for a bit more stability from a risk asset perspective, it would be to that part of the world and to equities over time. But again, I think for all of this that we're going to see a degree of waves through risk assets of that sort of faltering and then improving sentiment. So again, more confidence around some of the selection in bond market space, being a little bit more cautious in terms of the overall risk towards equities at this stage.
Andrew, very briefly, if you would, the threat of inflation. People again talking about this potentially, they're saying it's not beyond the bounds of possibility. With all this central bank intervention, in the end, inflation will come back as a risk, even if it seems unlikely at the moment. Briefly, what's your take on that?
So I think that it's something that certainly we should bear in mind, and for looking further out, because there's two things that clearly we could see that would be significant, which is that there's going to be a great deal of production decline and supply chain change, and those may well increase prices and there's the degree to which we see further stimulus coming through when economies are starting to show signs of getting onto a better footing.
Yeah.
But one of the reasons that we tend to use the term intervention versus stimulus now is that what you're really filling in is this massive hole of income and activity loss that we really are not sure what the size will be yet. How long this will play out. And so,
Andrew McCaffrey, Global Chief Investment Officer at Fidelity International, will leave it there.
Did you know that players of People's Postcode Lottery have raised over £500 million for charities and good causes? They've also won £63 million in prizes so far this year, and it could be your postcode next. Visit postcodelottery.co.uk/radio before midnight on the 21st of May to play in the June draws. PPL manage lotteries on behalf of good causes. 16 plus. Conditions apply. Play responsibly.
While most of us are looking out for each other at this time, sadly, fraudsters are trying to take advantage of the situation. Here's Chris Ainsley from Santander with advice for keeping your money safe.
Please be wary of people you've met online who claim to be stranded abroad and urgently need money. Always take time to think before you act, and if you think you're the victim of fraud, then let your bank know right away.
For more advice on keeping your money safe, visit santander.co.uk.
Where will 2020 take you? Somewhere where people care about each other, about our planet, about creating a better world for everyone, and becoming the best versions of yourselves. Join a community of like-minded individuals at the University of Winchester. Make sure to accept your offer by the UCAS deadline and visit our website to find out more. See the bigger picture. Be the difference. Go to winchester.ac.uk.
On the Bloomberg Business app and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio.
This is Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
External pressure is going to be an opportunity for reform in China. I think liquidity more generally across financial markets is an issue and a concern.
The Spanish banks in particular are in a much better place than they were 5 years ago.
It wouldn't be great to have a drawn-out trade conflict with the US or indeed with anybody else. But I've never been one to prophesy where sterling will be, and you're a madman if you think you can.
Bloomberg Daybreak Europe on Bloomberg Radio.
A very good morning from London. I'm Caroline Hepker.
And a good morning from the Bloomberg Bureau in Berlin. I'm Matt Miller. You're listening to Daybreak Europe on London DAB Digital Radio.
Matt, in the UK, it's humanity versus the virus. That apparently is what Boris Johnson is going to talk about when he speaks to European leaders, co-hosting this virtual effort to gather funds for a vaccine for coronavirus treatments that's being led by the EU Commission. All of this as the UK is still struggling to test enough people to find out what the spread of the coronavirus really is in Britain.
Yeah, testing. The question is, can they ramp up testing as quickly as possible? And I think people are asking that very same question in all Western countries. You know, the U.S. is trying to do the same. Here in Germany, supposedly they're doing quite well at testing, although I still haven't been able to get hold of one, and neither has anyone I know. So it seems like it's a very difficult thing, and hopefully the dam will break soon and all the tests will flow.
Yeah, absolutely. Meanwhile, it's certainly risk off in the markets at the moment. US Stock 600 down by 2.1% this morning. The FTSE 100, though, managing to stay flat. So actually, against the trend in Europe, the Xetra DAX down by 2.9% at the moment. The CAC 40, a slump of 3.4%. We've also had the PMI data out this morning for Europe, and it is as bad, basically, as we were expecting for countries like France and Italy. In terms of the other news, though, it's also around the US continued spat between Washington and Beijing, accusations about the source of the virus. Bloomberg dollar spot index is stronger 0.3%. The euro weakens 0.4% at 1.0932. The oil markets continue to dive 7.5% for WTI crude futures, $18.32. Brent crude at $25.71. I thought it was interesting, Matt, over the weekend, the hit on the Tadawul and what Saudi Arabia is saying about the painful measures that are going to have to take place there, deep spending cuts. So you see really the impact also of the oil price shock on those oil-dependent countries really hitting.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, had to come back and bite them in the end, right? They were not making any money at $60 a barrel. Yep. So at negative 36, it's even more difficult. Europe is slowly lifting its lockdown, though. So here in Germany and next door in France, things are getting back to business. Even in Italy and Spain, lockdowns are being lifted for many jobs, from manufacturing to construction. Children are allowed to go outside, finally. And I think starting today, adults are even allowed to leave the house for a little bit of exercise. PMI figures, of course, have been awful. 31.5 was the PMI in April for France. Italy was down to 31.1, even worse. Meanwhile, Germany's top court is about to rule on the QE plan that helped Europe get out of the last crisis, something that could cloud the ECB's current pandemic emergency response program. Joining us now is Lena Komoleva, chief economist at G+ Economics. Lena, what do you think about let's start with the ECB or central banks around the world? I mean, they're doing pretty much everything they can. Do you think it's going to be enough?
Good morning, Matt. Yes, I think when you have a deep global recession, in fact, a scale of economic shock that compares with the 1930s, Great Depression in the space of just several weeks, as we've seen through the April data, but also in a context of financial fragility. We entered this crisis with a highly overlevered real economies with a higher level of non-prime, risky corporate debt than we did a decade ago before the global financial crisis. So you add that kind of fragility with the deepening deglobalization, with the emerging market shock you were just talking about a minute ago, it means that we are very much in a picture of a monetary dominance. Central banks have got to abandon any traditional framework of inflation targeting. In fact, there is no point of that in this kind of environment of economic invisibility, and just actively risk manage fragility through a regime of volatility and rate repression.
Yeah.
The question, of course, is can more lending encourage risk-taking when you have a situation whereby we have flattened the global health curve, but at the expense of sharply steepening global credit default and unemployment curves? And the answer, of course, is not. So central banks have got to be a very big part of it, but they can't be the only part of it.
How long can the ECB protect Italy? Italian bonds leading peripheral euro area debt declines today. 10-year yields climbing some 11 basis points to 1.87%.
Well, this is a great question. And we're going to get the answer partially, I think, this week through the European Eurogroup Council deliberations, the summit, on a response package, the recovery emergency package that the European Commission is putting forward, but also through the German Constitutional Court's ruling that Matt was mentioning earlier. And the reason why these discussions at the legal and political level are so critical, of course, is that the sheer scale of this crisis, the sheer scale of the real economic losses that are only going to get realized now. We've seen the first taste of a double-digit depression-era recession, but what we haven't seen is that second leg of the realization of that recession risk through the credit shock, through the SMEs defaults, through the debt restructuring, through the corporate downgrades that are coming down the line, and that means that the ECB will be forced to take ever more risk onto its balance sheet. The current program will take us somewhere, but clearly a lot more will have to be done. That will require some political, I think, validation.
What does that mean for markets? I mean, I look at, Lena, the Stock 600, for example, just because it's a broader European benchmark that our listeners are maybe most that are holding probably most widely, and it was down hard from February to March, as we were talking about earlier, 35%, but it's rallied 25% since that low. Does it have further to fall now? I mean, is the market kind of kidding itself that this isn't going to be a giant financial crisis?
I think it's clear that there's just so little visibility into the macroeconomic environment that markets have tried to trade this as a temporary pandemic shock. The reality, of course, is this is not a health crisis. The fear of the coronavirus pandemic against the rising death toll is not going to disappear with the lockdowns ending. It is also a financial crisis, a parallel liquidity and solvency crisis that's playing through not just through the financial system, but critically now beyond the banks, through the broader capital market constituency of risk takers, but also, of course, in real economist credit markets, especially in those parts of the financial sector that central banks are not active. That's the fallen angels in Europe and high yield credit. And of course, there's a commodities crisis. Emerging markets have been triple hit through the corona pandemic, through the resource oil, the energy crisis, and the global growth and trade crisis. So combine that with the collapse in confidence and the collapse in productivity through the cancellation of investment plans globally, basically, at the moment, and you really have the makings of a shock that can take us from the Great Recession, which is what the March and April figures are showing us, towards the Great Depression. Now, how that squares with a market that snapped back so quickly, it clearly shows that central banks, the initial response has clearly worked. We've put the marginal cost of debt below the market's paying threshold, but that after an extraordinary level of deleveraging in that period between the end of February and end of March, the second leg, the real economy realization risk is still to come.
Yeah, indeed. There's so much more. Lena Komaleva, thank you so much for joining us, Chief Economist, G+ Economics. Matt, here in the UK, to that point about debt, one of the key stories in Britain is that there's going to be an expansion of this programme for small businesses, but they're charging, the government that is charging a 2.5% interest on that loan, up to £50,000. Yeah, it's 2.5%.
So this is like an episode of The Sopranos. It's because the government comes and tells you got to shut down your business. You're not allowed to make money anymore. We're stopping all your income.
Yeah.
But they don't shut down your landlord's business. They don't tell your bank they can't continue collecting on loans. So you still have to pay all these people. And then the government says, oh, hey, you know what? We'll lend you some money at 2.5%.
Yeah. Well, this is why the Chancellor is under such pressure to extend the furlough scheme, which is supporting, workers up to 80% of their salary. People say you can't, pull that rug from under businesses too quickly.
Well, hopefully at the end of, a lot of people have been talking about the possibility of debt forgiveness at the end of, on the other side of this crisis. And I know a lot of those loans also can be turned into grants if you do the right thing. If the boss thinks that you did a good job, then you get to turn those loans into grants, going back to the Sopranos metaphor. But maybe there will be a jubilee, was it in the Bible, like every 7 years or every 49 years, whenever there was a new king, they just forgave all debts? I'm not sure about that.
Your Bible reference is perhaps better than mine. Right, let's get over to Bloomberg's Leanne Gerrans, who's got all the latest now, standing by for us with World and National News. Good morning.
Caroline, good morning and thank you. Let's start here in the UK, where Boris Johnson will be taking part in a global virtual funding conference to try to raise £7 billion to back the search for a vaccine and therapies against the virus. Meanwhile, the UK will trial new track and trace procedures on the Isle of Wight next week, which, if successful, could help ease the country's lockdown. Bloomberg's Charles Capel reports.
The government said it has increased its daily testing capacity to over 100,000 tests a day, while also developing a contact tracing app and hiring up to 18,000 people to work on the strategy. Also this week, the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, will lay out a roadmap to relaxing the country's lockdown, and talks on a free trade agreement between the UK and the US will begin. On Sunday, the UK reported 315 additional deaths, the fewest since the end of March. In London, Charles Capel, Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
Let's cross over to Europe. France, Italy and Spain have all recorded the lowest daily fatalities from coronavirus for weeks as restrictions begin to ease. In Italy, the number of new deaths fell to the lowest in almost 2 months yesterday. Meanwhile, Spain also recorded the fewest new coronavirus fatalities in more than 6 weeks as it gradually eases strict lockdown measures. In France, travel restrictions will stay in place. The government is preparing to impose a mandatory quarantine for those trying to enter the country if they test positive for coronavirus. From Paris, Bloomberg's Anya Nussbaum reports.
French media also reported that Paris' second biggest airport is unlikely to reopen before end September. While the country plans to start lifting its lockdown from May 11th, it will take longer to reopen borders, the interior minister said. He also recommended that the French don't book their summer holidays yet. In Paris, Anya Nussbaum, Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
And crossing over to New Zealand, which has hit a major milestone after recording no new cases of coronavirus today. This is raising hopes it can further relax its lockdown restrictions next week. The Ministry of Health reported 0 new cases for the first time since the lockdown began on the 25th of March. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Leanne Gerrans. This is Bloomberg Caroline.
Thank you so much, Leanne Gerrans. Up next, Bloomberg Opinion. We speak to Chris Bryant next about Warren Buffett. This is Bloomberg.
Asset managers who seize change to launch new strategies, add distribution channels, or exploit new technology to re-engineer the investor experience are often rewarded. However, in an industry paralyzed with complexity, few act with agility or decisively. Few run their businesses strategically, yet the most competitive managers in the market know with the right partner and a flexible operating system, you can. Go boldly toward change with SEI Investment Manager Services.
Determination and operational strength are both essential factors for growth in asset management. I'm Steve Meyer, President and Head of SEI's Investment Manager Services Division. We know that disruptive forces create opportunities around the world. If you see potential in change, our industry specialists will maximize SEI's integrated platform of data and risk management, global investment operations, compliance support, and investor services to position your asset management business for success. Come grow with us.
With SEI Investment Manager Services, you lead the charge in a competitive marketplace. Learn more at SEIC.com/seize change.
Hi, I'm Bill Hageman, Withum's proud managing partner and CEO. We recognize this disruptive time is unsettling. For the past 45 years, Withum has been committed to helping our clients, our people, and our communities to be in a position of strength with innovative business advisory, tax, and assurance solutions. If you need guidance on business interruption and continuity issues or remote workplace solutions, please visit our website at withum.com. Together, we can get through these challenging times.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have arrived in Philadelphia. Local time is 3:05 p.m. and the temperature is 67 degrees. At this time, you are now free to use your cellular devices.
You know that feeling when you get to turn your phone on after the plane lands? You can have that feeling every time you drive. Make sure your cell phone is stowed away whenever you are behind the wheel.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
Influential conversations from Bloomberg Television. Here's Yvonne Mann.
Edward Lim, CIO of Covenant Capital. He joins us on the line from Singapore. We could be seeing more of a correction. Could we retest the lows that we saw in March, or do you think that was enough of a floor for us to kind of bounce off of?
I think for us to retest the lows, two things have to happen. First of which is basically the trajectory of the virus should get worse in the sense of whether in the new cases, second wave of epidemic coming through, or if we have development regarding therapeutics and vaccine not coming in as we are hoping that it will be in the last couple of months. There's been a lot of positive news on that. So that's the first reason, right, if we could test the low. The second reason is that the economic, the stimulus that has been enacted via both fiscal and monetary policy runs out of steam. And I think we look at the numbers here when we tabulate in terms of the fiscal stimulus that's been enacted so far, it's going to exceed more than $5 trillion, with the U.S. just announcing another $434 billion back in about 24th of April. So the $5 trillion itself is more than 6% of the global GDP. That should more than offset the potential economic loss that we are modeling for the rest of this year.
Hear more interviews like this one on Bloomberg Television, streaming live on Bloomberg.com and on the Bloomberg mobile app, or check your local cable listings.
Markets, headlines and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app and on QuickTake by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Good morning from London. I'm Sandra Kilhoff with this Bloomberg Business Flash. Now, it is a risk-off day in the markets. We are seeing the Stock 600 down 2.2%, the DAX slipping more than 3%. Similarly so for the CAC 40 in Paris. The FTSE fairly flat here in London. US E-mini futures also pointing to a lower open. It follows a similar trading day in Asia, despite the fact that we have seen the death toll and new coronavirus cases globally continue to slide. Maybe perhaps this is down to the fact that we've had a slew of economic data out this morning showing a downturn, particularly in factory output. So the economy really taking a big hit from the pandemic. So that risk-off tone boosting the greenback. The Bloomberg Dollar Spot Index up 0.4%. The yen up 0.1 at 106.8. We are seeing sterling and the euro both weaker, down 0.5% each as a result. Aussie and Kiwi dollars also a bit lower this morning. In the bond markets, 10-year Treasury yields down a basis point at 60 basis points. 10-year bund yields interestingly moving higher, up 2 basis points at negative 56. 10-year gilt yields down a basis point at 24 basis points. Finally, in the commodity markets, oil slightly weaker at $18 a barrel for WTI, $25 a barrel for Brent. Gold moving higher, up 0.2% at $1,704 a troy ounce. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Now here's Dan Garrins with more on what's going on around the world.
Sandra, thank you. Hong Kong is planning to relax social distancing measures to allow public gatherings of no more than 8 people. That's according to reports from cable TV. The government may allow cinemas, beauty parlours and gyms to reopen this week. Existing measures are set to expire on Thursday. No new local coronavirus cases have been recorded there in 14 days. North and South Korea have exchanged fire in the demilitarized zone for the first time in years. Seoul says the North fired several times at a guard post, followed by retaliation and a verbal warning. The escalation comes a day after the North Korean leader's first public appearance in 20 days. His absence prompted global speculation about his health. And universities in England will receive almost £3 billion from the government as part of efforts to stabilise admissions and safeguard students. The money will be used to ease cash flow concerns and protect research activities. The Education Secretary, Gavin Williamson, will outline new measures later today. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on QuickTake by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Leanne Gerrans. This is Bloomberg.
Bloomberg Opinion, informed perspectives, and expert data-driven commentary on breaking news.
Now it's 9:20 a.m. here in London, so it's time to check in with Bloomberg Opinion. We're joined by opinion columnist Chris Bryant this morning. He's been writing about the battered airline industry. Amongst that, Warren Buffett trying to get rid of or selling off his stakes. Chris, let's talk about the European angle to this. European Airlines, Lufthansa, Norwegian working on bailout. And then just within the last few minutes, Norwegian Air shareholders are backing the debt conversion and the share sale. That's according to Norway's DN, the Today business newspaper. What do we know about the bailouts?
Well, I mean, some pretty sizable amounts of money being put on the table here by European governments to rescue their airlines, without which many of them would run out of cash within a matter of weeks or months. The difference is, of course, though, is that the terms of these bailouts are quite different. And in Norwegian's case, some really quite strict terms were provided, which required a sort of debt for equity swap, which will heavily dilute the Norwegian shareholders. But they seem to have voted in favour this morning, according to those reports you mentioned. And no surprise there, frankly, because without the money, they would be in real trouble. Air France getting an astonishing $7 billion or so from its government, and that was signed off by the European Commission today. And then you've got Lufthansa also in negotiations, almost certain to get, a very high single-digit, if not even 10 more billion bailout. And so, just astonishing numbers, but they need the cash.
They need the cash. And what do you think about Michael O'Leary's concern that they will then, because of these injections, be able to charge low prices for the next few years? They don't need to worry about making a profit anyway. So does this hurt competition?
Well, I mean, I wrote a column last week on this exact subject, and yes, I think it does hurt competition in the sense that the airlines that went into this crisis with the better balance sheets, with more cash, are not getting bailouts. I'm talking about Ryanair and British Airways, for example. IAG only getting a limited amount of help from the Spanish government, IAG, the parent of British Airways. And by comparison, weaker balance sheets at Lufthansa and Air France, and they're getting a big bailout. Whether they can use that, though, to subsidize tickets, I mean, I know O'Leary has said this, but the real situation is that these companies are on their knees, and they're having to, pay out vast amounts of money to compensate passengers whose flights have been cancelled and all the rest of it. So I don't really think they're going to be in a position to offer bargain basement fares to passengers as much as maybe O'Leary suggests they will be. They're still going to be in a very difficult position. They've got to pay this money back at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. What does all of that mean for passengers in the meantime? I mean, all I read about in the press is that in the UK, for the domestic audience, is that you can't get a refund.
It's really tough. I mean, the consumers are supposed to get a refund under law, but various national governments are trying to block that from happening for the obvious reason that if the money is paid out, then these companies will be in a real pickle. But it's a really tough environment from out there, and now, of course, as I was writing this morning, they're having to put these new health measures into place in the United States, and probably here too. Passengers are going to have to fly with face masks on. That doesn't exactly make you want to book a flight ticket in a hurry.
No thanks. On the other hand, on the plus side, you point out that business class passengers may start having to board last, which has only made logical sense to me for my entire life, even as I fly business class.
Yeah, it's one of the quirks of the measures that have been put in place. That might make sense for business passengers to get on last. But, there's going to be pain across the board here. And the airlines are worried, too, because one of the measures that's been recommended so far is that you leave the middle seat free. That makes sort of intrinsic sense to a lot of people, and yet at the same time, if you start doing that, then the economics of putting people on plane rapidly deteriorate, because if you've got only 2/3 of the seats filled, you have essentially to take off but not make any money, or you charge passengers more, and trying to force through price hikes in this kind of environment will be very difficult.
All right, Chris, thanks very much. Chris Bryant, if you want to get more of his articles, go ahead and check out OPIN Go on your Bloomberg terminal. If we had more time, Chris, I would take issue with your review of Love Actually, because I think it's really one of the greatest holiday films of all time. But you said it's saccharine and occasionally creepy. I guess we'll have to discuss after. This is Bloomberg.
With a Bloomberg Business of Sports report, I'm Michael Barr. NFL Players Association President J.C. Tretter is calling for a re-examination of a portion of the labor agreement with the league affecting disability coverage for former players. Tretter wants the NFLPA's executive board and the leadership of former players to come together to discuss some offsets in the collective bargaining agreement narrowly approved by the players in March. Tretter says the language the overall union membership voted on is not the same as what wound up in the deal that runs through the 2030 season. The NCAA is facing claims that it has repeatedly failed to address violence and harassment of female students by male student athletes. The complaint alleges that the NCAA has fostered a culture in which female victims are discouraged from reporting sexual assaults. And that is a Bloomberg Business of Sports report. I'm Michael Barr, brought to you by Marcus by Goldman Sachs. With a high-yield online savings account, you can money.
If knowledge is power, the Bloomberg Terminal is your power up, connecting you to real-time financial data, market-moving news, powerful analytics, and an influential network of financial decision makers around the world. Share ideas, negotiate trades, and gain the insight you need to make more informed decisions. See how the terminal can take your workflow to the next level at Bloomberg.com/professional.
Who's in your corner? At Commonwealth Financial Network, our advisors would say we are. Our supportive environment lets you be true to yourself, and our culture of accountability means we don't just ask for your feedback. We act on it, so we can deliver the solutions you need to enrich the lives of your clients and build the business you've always dreamed of. Ready to discover the difference? Call Commonwealth at 866-462-3638 or visit commonwealth.com. Member FINRA SIPC, a registered investment advisor.
Business is constantly evolving.
Picture in your mind a stylish Audi with striking LED headlights, sporty alloy wheels, and some of our most advanced features, including a 10-inch digital cockpit and smart assistant systems like lane departure warning. Picture what that Audi looks like. Now think smaller. The Audi A1. It's not a small car, it's a small Audi. Visit audi.co.uk. Audi. Vorsprung durch Technik.
Where will 2020 take you? Somewhere where people care. About each other. About our planet. About creating a better world for everyone. And becoming the best versions of yourselves. Join a community of like-minded individuals at the University of Winchester. Make sure to accept your offer by the UCAS deadline and visit our website to find out more. See the bigger picture. Be the difference. Go to winchester.ac.uk.
We need to tackle coronavirus together. You can help by not travelling this May bank holiday unless it is absolutely essential. With limited staff, TfL is only supporting those people making essential journeys. No one else should be travelling. If you must travel, try to avoid the busy times, particularly the early morning. We have already seen fewer people using our services. London, together we can all do our bit. This May bank holiday, stay at home, do not travel, save lives.
Imagine winning 10 grand. Yes! With Set for Life, you can win 10 grand every month for 30 years. Get in! Amazing! Woo! Yes! Sweet! Unbelievable! Set for Life from the National Lottery. Your numbers make amazing happen. Play Monday online or on the app. Prize may be capped. Rules, procedures and game-specific rules apply. Players must be 16 or over.
Max is dreaming of riding a giant chameleon whilst fighting a clan of ninjas. But in reality, he's helping fight COVID-19 in his sleep. Like thousands of others, he's joined the Dream Team. By using the Dream Lab app, they're helping scientists speed up the search for potential treatments.
I'll fight you.
You go, Max. Search Vodafone Dream Lab and join the Dream Team tonight.
Dreamlab app is owned by Vodafone Foundation, an independent charity. Registration number 1089625. Full terms at vodafone.co.uk/dreamlab.
To London on DAB Digital Radio. To New York, Bloomberg 1130. To Washington, D.C., Bloomberg 99.1. To Boston, Bloomberg 106.1. To San Francisco, Bloomberg 960. And around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
Good morning from the German Bureau in Berlin. I'm Matt Miller.
And I'm Caroline Hebke here in London. Welcome to the programme. So, humanity versus the virus. That's what Number 10 says that Johnson will say at this virtual gathering of European leaders to raise money for a vaccine and coronavirus treatments. In terms of the markets this morning, away from the politics, the FTSE 100 down 0.2%, not nearly as bad as the US stock 600, down 2.3%. But then, of course, the pound is falling a week and a half of 1% in terms of cables. That perhaps the reason. The Xetra DAX down an even bigger 3%. The CAC 40 down 3.5%. As French and Japanese ministers this morning talk about getting their countries back to work when the lockdown is lifted. So a massive shift in rhetoric is going on here as companies try to power up again after the lockdowns. As for US futures, they've also been hit significantly this morning. We did see a 10% gain in global equities last month, but the mood is certainly sour this morning. S&P 500 E-mini futures down by 0.8%. This continued spat between Trump and Beijing worrying traders. Trump talking about tariffs in retaliation for the coronavirus, essentially. Trump blaming China for its spread. As for the bond markets, also
Trump and many others.
Yes, indeed. What about yields this morning? Negative 56 basis points for German yields and 60 basis points for US yields, so down by a basis point. Those are the markets.
All right, now on to one of our top interviews this morning. In fact, one of the most read stories right after we did it. Luxury car maker Bugatti is reopening its factory today as European nations finally begin to roll back the harshest measures of the lockdowns. Anna Edwards and I spoke with the CEO of Bugatti, Stefan Winkelmann, earlier this morning. I began by asking what will be different at the Bugatti factory on its first day open.
we are starting slowly. Everybody is wearing masks. Everybody has to clean the tools after utilizing them, and constantly wash their hands with those alcoholic solutions. And but other than that, I think they're in good spirits. I was in the atelier. This is how we call our factory this morning, and now let's wait what is going to happen next.
Stefan, good morning to you. It's Anna in London. What about your supply chain? Securing parts from Asia, securing all the various pieces of equipment that you need to put together these cars. Do you have any problems with the supply chain now?
Yeah, because this was one of the key elements, because we shut down, let's say, the missing supply chain and transport opportunities. And this is the reason why we had to close down until today. We think that almost everybody is back on track in terms of our suppliers, and this is the reason why we feel safe to reopen today, even if we start on a slow pace in the first 2 weeks.
Which are the parts that are the hardest to get a hold of? I mean, a lot of your cars, of course, are handcrafted there. A lot of the parts that you put in these cars are specifically made for the Chiron, but I assume you still have suspension parts or electronics that are coming from Asia. Which regions are hardest to access right now, Stefan?
Let's say that we always, being a small car manufacturer, we always had to decide between make or buy. So we have, for sure, as you said, important suppliers, and mostly they are coming out of Europe. And one of our most important ones are the ones in Italy. And as you know, Italy was one of the countries which was hit in the worst possible way, and therefore we had to wait pretty long. And today it seems that all of them are back at work. But we're constantly
you talk about how
this, because we are constantly monitoring.
Yes, so you're constantly monitoring it in the supply chain. Stefan, in terms of the production process, then you suggest there'll be people wearing masks and hand sanitizer. But are you having to change your expectations for production? Is it going to take you longer to produce cars? Will there be fewer cars in production?
No, because it's all handmade. We don't think that this is going to influence the capacity of our production. So far, it seems that this is not going to change anything.
What about new products, Stefan? I mean, is this going to make it more difficult? I know you've got the Devo out right now, or coming out, which is a limited edition of the Chiron. I believe there are only going to be 40 made. I'm sure they're all sold already. But what about the development of new products? For example, could there be a four-door Bugatti?
What we wanted to present at the Geneva Motor Show, which unfortunately was then cancelled, was one of the derivatives of the Chiron. It's the pure sport, which is all about agility and emotions, a reduction of weight, better handling behavior, more downforce, so all to increase the drivability on windy roads of this particular car. Unfortunately, we had not had the opportunity to present this live. We did it via video, and it's clear that from now on, or also in the last 6 weeks, we were working from home, constantly revising our scenarios. One of the things which is clear to us is that we don't know how this is going to continue. Our dealers, so our partners, are going to open up, we think, almost all within the month of May. And I hope that by June, July, we know a bit more about how the market is going to respond to our type of cars. Until that, it's very difficult. We have to be prepared, and therefore we are working on different scenarios.
So that was Stephen Winkleman. He is the CEO of Bugatti, and they're reopening their factory today in France.
Right, let's get over to Bloomberg's Leanne Gerrans, who's got all the latest in global news. Good morning.
Caroline, good morning and thank you. Let's start here in the UK, where Boris Johnson will be taking part in a global virtual funding conference to try to raise £7 billion to back the search for a new vaccine and therapies against the virus. More details are expected this week on a back-to-work plan for businesses. The UK will trial new track and trace procedures on the Isle of Wight from next week, which, if successful, could help ease the country's lockdown. Meanwhile, the daily death toll from the coronavirus is falling across the UK, France, Italy and Spain. That's as leaders across Europe wrestle with how to ease lockdown restrictions. Britain is not set to unwind its curbs just yet. That's as the government prepares guidance for the next steps. Elsewhere, France's Finance Minister Bruno Le Maire says it is important the nation goes back to work on the 11th of May. Staying in Europe, German Chancellor Angela Merkel and French President Emmanuel Macron are spearheading a European initiative to speed up the development of a vaccine against the coronavirus. Let's get more from Bloomberg's Birgit Jennen.
Ahead of Monday's donor conference of the European Union and the World Health Organization, Merkel has pledged that vaccination and medication should be available for all people wherever they are from. She said Germany is ready to make a distinct financial contribution to the $8 billion project, as only multilateral action will allow the world to overcome the crisis. In Berlin, Birgit Jennen, Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
And Australia's population growth will likely halve next year as the coronavirus spurs a collapse in migration. That's according to the government. Bloomberg's Ed Johnson has more.
Travel bans and border closures could see migration fall by as much as 85%. That will hurt the economy, making it even more important to boost productivity. The economy is potentially headed for its first recession in almost 30 years as lockdown measures close off broad sections of society. But the restrictions do appear to be working, with the rate of new infections slowing to a trickle. In Sydney, Ed Johnson, Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Leanne Gerrans. This is Bloomberg. Caroline.
Thank you so much, Leanne, with the world news. Let's get some sports news now. Top football will not be open to fans for a while. Here's Joe Rawson.
Premier League clubs are preparing for the possibility of playing the whole of next season behind closed doors. The top flight is continuing to work on proposals to complete the current campaign at a number of neutral venues, but they have also started considering the impact of playing into next year without fans as well. Meanwhile, Norwich City boss Daniel Farke hopes his side get the chance to pull off the Great Escape. The Premier League Sporting Club were 6 points adrift of safety when all football in England was postponed because of the coronavirus pandemic. Football clubs in Italy are set to return to training grounds this week after getting the go-ahead from the government, while teams in Spain will be allowed to open training centres again next week. And England's tour of Sri Lanka that was postponed in March has been rescheduled for January 2021. The ECB held discussions with Cricket West Indies on Friday as the two boards looked for dates to hold the 3-test series.
All right, that was your European sports report with Joe Rawson there. Coming up on Bloomberg, we're going to talk with James Bevan from C.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station. There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Why do hedge funds and other alternative managers rely on Pershing for a highly personalized experience? Mark Alderati, a managing director at BNY Mellon's Pershing and head of Prime Services, explains.
In today's fast-paced environment, where the only constants are change and volatility, you need a prime broker who's both steady and agile, focused on supporting your needs so that you can focus on growing your business and producing results. Exceptional client service and advocating for our clients is at the core of what we do. Our award-winning high-touch team is just one of the benefits of working with BNY Mellon. We help alternative investment managers create great experiences for their clients. Whether it's customized financing, securities lending solutions, platform access, or outsourced trading, BNY Mellon's Pershing is a prime broker who's committed to this business and dedicated to meeting your evolving demands.
To learn more about the unique and industry-leading solutions for hedge funds and other alternative managers, visit Pershing.com. Pershing LLC. Member FINRA, NYSE SIPC.
Have you wanted to speak a new language?
Somebody has a stroke every 5 minutes in the UK. With time, though, courage, and the right support, lives can be rebuilt. Mine was. But with this current crisis, I can't imagine how much harder it must be for the stroke survivor and their family, more isolated and alone than ever. The Stroke Association is working tirelessly to support the NHS and develop new ways to rebuild lives. To find out more or to donate, search Stroke Association now.
Where will 2020 take you? Somewhere where people care. About each other. About our planet. About creating a better world for everyone. And becoming the best versions of yourselves. Join a community of like-minded individuals at the University of Winchester. Make sure to accept your offer by the UCAS deadline and visit our website to find out more. See the bigger picture. Be the difference. Go to winchester.ac.uk.
While most of us are looking out for each other at this time, sadly, fraudsters are trying to take advantage of the situation. Here's Chris Ainsley from Santander with advice for keeping your money safe.
Please be vigilant for suspicious calls that appear to be from your bank, the police, or the government. Remember, neither Santander, the police, or any other organisation will ask you to move or withdraw money for security reasons.
For more advice on keeping your money safe, visit santander.co.uk.
This is an important message from the government. For now, we must all still stay at home. It can be hard, but it's making a difference. So please keep going for the ones you love. Keep going for every key worker on the front line as they keep going for us. Keep going because together we will beat the virus. To all of you making sacrifices every day, thank you. Stay home, protect the NHS, save lives.
Picture this. Small businesses on eBay are working to
get things moving.
Sending spices to novice cooks.
Hairbands to kids.
Desks for home offices.
Delivering the goods.
Shipping footballs.
Fruit trees.
And dishwashers.
Thousands of small businesses on eBay are helping to keep the nation going. They are individually brilliant, stronger as one. Buy, sell, eBay.
At the Halifax, we're all working together to be there for you.
Your money is safe in your account. However, people are using the coronavirus outbreak as an opportunity to try out new scams.
Rest assured that we will never call, text or email you asking you to move money to another account.
Neither will we ask you to share your login details.
For more information and for tips on how you can protect yourself against fraudsters, visit halifax.co.uk/security.
So however you need us, at the Halifax,
we're here to help.
To help make the most of your time at home, TuneIn is sharing our top activities for social distancing. Tip 3, have a game night. In fact, why not make it a game day? Whether you're quarantined with kids or roommates, nothing passes the time like a game of cards, Pictionary, charades, dominoes, or Never Have I Ever. If you've got the hardware, break out the video game console and enjoy hours of guilt-free gaming. For more indoor inspiration, search Listen from Home on TuneIn.
Get your MLB fix with these great podcasts on TuneIn. Fill your seventh inning stretch with the Ringer MLB Show.
I just can't get over it. It's like, oh, well, Jeter Downs didn't realize he was a top. Like my dad is drinking the Kool-Aid on this. He's like, of course, Mookie was going to leave. I'm like, what do you mean? You don't know that.
Slide into second with the Starting Nine podcast.
Nolan Arenado slides right into the top spot for a favorite baseball player. Active in the league right now. It is a pleasure to be sitting next to you, sir.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thank you.
This is we've been waiting a long time for this. We actually, in terms of like active
round the bases with the Statcast podcast.
Ways of going about it. I picked third, so in some ways it made it easier for me. Mike just to go over the first couple of picks. Mike took Barry Bonds, who I think was kind of the obvious guy to take number one. Not only
catch these and more MLB podcasts right here on TuneIn.
Headlines and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on QuickTake by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Good morning from London. I'm Sandra Kilhoff with this Bloomberg Business Flash. Now, a risk-off mood is dominating markets today with the Stock 600 currently down 2.3%. Similarly so, we are seeing the DAX down 3%, the CAC 40 sliding 3.6%, the FTSE fairly flat here in London. US futures also pointing to a lower open. It follows a similar day in Asia after a slew of economic data showed factory output slumped dramatically in April. We saw similar data coming out of Europe as well, really showing the impact of the pandemic. In some stock specifics, do keep an eye on Telefonica. It's rallied more than 3% in Madrid. This on the back of a potential merger deal with Virgin. They're in talks there about creating the UK's biggest telecoms operators. That could be quite interesting one to watch. Now, the risk-off mood is pushing the greenback higher, up 0.3%. Dollar yen gaining 0.2% at 106.7. Because of that dollar strength, we are seeing G10 currencies slightly weaker. Sterling down 0.4 at 124, the euro at 109, the Kiwi and Aussie dollars also a bit weaker. In the bond markets, 10-year treasury yields are down a basis point at 60 basis points. 10-year gilt yields similarly so at 24 basis points, but 10-year bund yields are slightly higher, up 2 basis points at negative 57 this morning. In the commodity markets, oil is lower again today, WTI at $18 a barrel, Brent similarly so at $25 a barrel, down 2% at the moment. We are seeing gold bid, however, up 0.3% at $1,705 a troy ounce. That's Bloomberg Business Flash. Now here's Liam Garrins with more on what's going on around the world.
Sandra, thank you so much. In Italy, Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte is facing a growing revolt by business and political rivals. Starting today, the nationwide lockdown is being eased. Pressure to speed up the reopening is likely to increase. New deaths and infections blamed on the virus have fallen to the lowest level in almost 2 months. Now, North and South Korea have exchanged fire in the demilitarized zone for the first time in years. Seoul says the North fired several times at a guard post, followed by retaliation and a verbal warning. The escalation comes a day after the North Korean leader's first public appearance in 20 days. His absence prompted global speculation about the state of his health, and Ireland is moving closer to forming a new government. The Green Party has agreed to enter formal talks with the country's two traditional major parties, Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil. The two rivals agreed to try to form a government. That was last month, but they need a third coalition member for a parliamentary majority. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on QuickTake by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Jan Gerrans. This is Bloomberg Matt.
Leanne, thank you very much for that. Let's get over to Nathan Hager. He joins us out of the USA this morning.
Hello.
Where he's preparing for Daybreak America. Nathan, what have you got?
Well, we're looking at the fragility of the sentiment in this market this morning, Matt. After the big rally in April, looks like the selling that started on Friday is going to continue as we head into this new week here. Despite some positive signs from the coronavirus outbreak, we're starting to see some evidence that the case count is leveling off. A high-profile treatment's gotten emergency approval, and talk of another round of stimulus is about to begin in Washington. But questions about the origins of COVID-19 have the U.S. ramping up tensions with China again. That could be weighing on markets this morning. We're going to get into all of it with Dennis Gartman, former publisher of the Gartman Letter, joins us.